Hey, I'm back, and today we're going to be taking a look at, if you can't guess, ASTROWORLD. Um, Now, I'm assuming everybody does have kind of a at least basic idea who Travis Scott is, and what ASTROWORLD is. But just to be safe, on this assumption that you somehow stumbled upon this video on my channel and don't know what this guy and what this album is, I'll kind of go into that a little bit, just glazed over it. But if you should really look up on this guy first, because he really does have a bit more than what can be said in a quick snippet about him. Travis Scott is a producer, a rapper, and a curator, and he's from the Houston, or the 713, and well, his career, he kind of garnered the attention of many other kind of big heads in rap, and which kind of led to him being able to work with them a little bit, learn and bounce ideas back and forth off of them, and eventually led to what is credited for really morphing modern day trap into what it is now. And the album that did that was Rodeo. Rodeo just really established a lot of the better quality sounds that you can hear in trap nowadays, as well as it having its own feel, so it still feels unique to the rest of trap even now after several years after its release, and with it being very psychedelic and spacey vibes. And he followed this album up the next year in 2016 with Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight, which really came off kind of as a disappointment to a lot of the fans. I enjoyed quite a few songs on the album, but the latter half, or a little bit more of the latter half, did seem incomplete. It seemed like he was rushed and like forced into putting this album out, and understandably, in a sense, for ASTROWORLD, he really took his time. Yet 2 years isn't really that long of a time, but with the pressure that he's been under to put this thing out, he definitely waited, made sure it was ready, and then came out with it. To kick off the album, Stargazing is the opening track, and it so far seems to be one of the fan favorites, with it really heavily featuring Travis's really kind of iconic production in it. And I'm not actually quite sure if he actually did produce it, but his sound is just so infused into it that it is indistinguishable from anybody else. And this is also the track that was used for the trailer of ASTROWORLD, so it definitely got a good amount of hype around it, even just a few days before the release of the album. The track is also split into two parts, with a beat switch in the middle and this kind of like roller coaster thingy, and that's really because ASTROWORLD was a park, a Six Flags park down in Houston that closed down, I believe, 2004, 2005, 2006, sometime around then. And so Travis said this album was kind of like a culmination of the pain and the sound of the fun being taken away from the kids and it being turned into boring parking lots and apartments. But the production on the first half of the track does stand out a bit more to me. It is, like I said, it is that kind of iconic, what Travis is known to have, his production. And then the second half is a bit kind of darker with a more grungy, dirty bass and so a few other sounds that sound a bit darker and heavier than the more kind of psychedelic, spacey start. And the vocals on this track, Travis definitely doesn't stand out a lot. I mean, he's not really known for having great lyrics or vocals, but he does have this kind of high-pitched, high-octave chorus in it that plastered with auto-tune, very iconic thing of his that he always does. So it does sound good, just kind of typical in what I expected for lyrically and vocally. But the beat switch, however, does come off a little on edge to me. I saw some tweet about this, kind of claiming about how just having a beat switch doesn't really mean it's cool or interesting or good even. And I saw somebody, they then continued to say though that Travis does this on a few tracks on the album, and this is more done just to be cool and creative and not really done in a good way. It doesn't really sound like the second part of the song should fit with the first part, and to me that's what really is kind of the downfall for the song. Even though tons of people do love it and are hyped about it and stuff, this song really just it drops me off a cliff once that beat switch starts. Carousel is then the second track on the album, and this one, it's pretty good, I guess. I mean, it's not really great, not really bad, and it features Frank Ocean, which is a kind of a nice surprise on it, and he sounds fantastic as always. Kind of delivers kind of two sides of him, which is kind of unique, but good to hear on a song, especially like this, with how well it kind of blends with the rest of the sound. But the instrumental for it is really just kind of a mesh of stargazing, like the start and the first half and the second half of the track, and it kind of takes like some of the more distorted bass and puts it with kind of the more spacey synths and stuff that the first half of Stargazing had, and so it does come out as a more finished track than Stargazing to me, and a much more cohesive, coherent one, but still doesn't really have something that really puts a pow in my face and really makes me want to come back and listen over and over. Then comes up Sicko Mode, which is a whole package to unravel. This song initially starts off with kind of a mini half verse thing, and with Drake of all people, and Drake sounds fine. The beat, it's all right at the beginning, but thankfully, because this song otherwise just probably would have ended up being all right, the beat switches about 30 seconds into the track, and goes into this much more in your face, great sounding, just Travis flow. He's just going at you the entire time, and it absolutely sounds amazing for the entire time. And Drake is yet not to be found in the second part, before then beat switching again into a third part, which is probably the most iconic or the most recognizable part of the song, where it features a chorus about going out like a light because of taking a prescribed Xanax on a plane just to fit in and seem cool. Back to the second section of the song, it does feature Big Hawk and Sway Lee. Sway Lee's part is very slight. No, there's not much really there. He just says a line, and it's just kind of chopped and put in here and there. And then the Big Hawk part is kind of used as the chorus for the second section. And then the third section, the beat kind of has a just more regular trap sound, kind of reminiscent of Mob Ties by Drake. And so it does sound good. It is a good beat. It just isn't really as good as the second one, in my opinion, on this track. The next track is then Rip Screw, who I didn't really know much about, but DJ Screw, from what I've read and looked up on, he is credited for creating Chopped and Screwed, and has really built himself a name in the Houston area. And this is honestly probably one of my more favorite tracks, and like the all around things that were put into it, like there's this kind of weird xylophony almost beat to it that kind of grows and gets louder and faster, and then fades back to just the normal like clunking and clinking, and it's very unique and something I haven't really heard in hip hop or much less anywhere else before. And the vocals from Travis also seem a lot better than a lot of the other tracks as well. He comes through with a much better higher octave sound than like Stargazing, where he just sounds kind of rambling and incoherent. But Sway Lee also reappears on this track, giving off a pretty stellar vocal performance, singing about honeys and stuff. Featuring Kid Cudi, but only the humming parts of Kid Cudi, is the song Stop Trying to Be God. And this one has really, from what I've seen, been really critically acclaimed so far. Much a lot of appreciation for the song. Travis definitely tries his hardest to like stay on topic and avoid rap cliches that are found all across the rest of the album, and it really stays on topic on this track, and which I really appreciate as a listener, as I assume a ton of other people do as well. And James Blake also happens to be on the track and delivers an absolutely gorgeous verse towards the end of the song, and that does kind of go a little bit against the grain with the beat, which also isn't that truly amazing, but it is kind of dismissible due to James Blake being the godly vocalist that he is, and the fact that Stevie Wonder is actually on the harmonica for the last portion of the track, last 2/3 I think. He comes on harmonica, and it sounds really gives a sound that I wouldn't think Travis wanted, but really pulls it off very, very smoothly and tightly wound. Then rolling in the next song is No Bystanders, which features a couple newcomers. Travis Scott's like personal friend, Sheck West, who he has, I'm not exactly sure how he met, but he's kind of brought him up. I believe he got him signed to a label, and he pays homage to I believe 3 6 Mafia's "Tear the Club Up," with the chorus where he's just saying "fuck the club up" about 4 times in a row. And the other newcomer on this track is actually Juice World, which I assume most people know who that is. And he doesn't really have a big verse or anything. He just kind of like a pre-chorus thing that is kind of interesting, a cool little filter layered over his voice, kind of almost reminiscent of the one that's on Uzi's and Wasted of little Juice WRLD's song. But the real highlight on this track really is the fantastic flow and cadence that Travis gives off on the verses. He truly just mows down through it, like no dull moment whatsoever. Skeletons is the preceding track, which kind of is more of like a creative test for Travis, it seems like. And not really just Travis either, because on this track, Pharrell's on it, The Weeknd, and Tame Impala. And it really comes together for kind of what would seem interesting sound, but kind of left me feeling kind of empty and like there wasn't much there. Like, it's kind of a short track, I believe, but there was never really any hit or anything. Then I was like, oh damn, that was Tame Impala, or that was Pharrell, or that was The Weeknd. It seems like they're all just kind of lightly sprinkled in, but not enough to really stand out and make the song feel unique or really that interesting. However, The Weeknd does kind of make up for it on the next track, Wake Up. And he really delivers just probably one of the best choruses on the album. The beat uses this more acoustic guitar with a kind of morphed vocal edit that kind of looms over the track. And then during the verses, to make up for the kind of really stripped back sound while Travis is rapping, there's a kind of really high-pitched vocal something that kind of really brings some interest to me, and it really kind of connects. Just every part of the song really just connects well. And Travis also delivers the chorus once, and he also sounds pretty good compared to what he typically sounds like, and this is kind of one of the more highlighted tracks for me, and definitely one of my favorites. 5% Tint uses it's a very unique track. Like, even for the aesthetic of this album, there's still a unique sound to this song and this song only, yet it still fits in perfectly well on the album. But it uses a very creepy kind of just basic piano, like boom, 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 kind of creeps up on you, like creepy, I guess. And it uses a really deep, heavy bass that really just you really feel it when it hits. It would almost feel dry without it, but this really adds some more layers and depth to the song. There's also this animal that kind of pans around that has a really grumbly growl that sounds very creepy, but really, like I said, brings the track full circle, kind of makes the instrumental really fit in and stand out, and it really makes it brings it into itself and one of its own on the album. But the track does lack, however, is anything really catchy along the lines of verses or choruses or just sounding good. I mean, the only thing that's really memorable is the kind of reference to Goody Mob's Cell Therapy. And then the outro on this actually kind of reminds me of the outro to Denzel Curry's latest album, Taboo. And with some more kind of really in-your-face bass just kind of fading out everything else and just really throwing that at you. It's still not as heavy and dark as Denzel's, but still definitely has its place in this. NC-17 features 21 Savage with kind of a chimey, eerie melody, a bit more of a regular trap song, but still kind of keeps a kind of eerie vibe to it, so it still finds its place and still fits well onto the album. And 21 Savage, honestly, is really the focal point for me on this song. His flow is fantastic. He raps about calling a girl babyface, which you should probably listen to find out what he means by that. The issue is Travis just doesn't really come in with a big hitter or something that really kind of makes me recognize this track even more often. It is a good track, and I do enjoy listening to it quite often, but it really doesn't have any part of it that really makes it stand out and go in my face like this is a great track. Then there's Astro Thunder, which is probably named due to the fact that Thundercat is featured on the track, which also next to John Mayer, but this song doesn't really have anything really that interesting other than the bass line, which Thundercat is kind of known for. It really just lacks everything. if not my least favorite track, it's pretty far down there. It's just everything is just forgettable about it. Yosemite has Gunna on the chorus, and he definitely has his unique sound, so it really kind of pulls through for him. And Travis kind of easily flows into it with their voices not being the same, but definitely similar enough, but recognizable where it fits. They fit like a puzzle piece, just really smoothly together. And Travis really just kind of takes a more patient approach in the verses and really just sounds nice and thought out and methodical, and it's not really rushed or just grungy or anything. It's really just a nice pleasant track to listen to Travis on this. But the issue is really the Nav verse at the end, and if you haven't listened to the album, I will explain it the best I can. Basically, Nav is mixed extremely low, so you can barely hear him, and his verse is extremely short, and God knows why he sounds like this. I mean, he sounds fine, but only when you can hear him. Can't say it has a bit more typical type beat on it, much like NC-13 and a few others, but the big part of this track that I really like is this newcomer Don Toliver. Now, before this album, I doubt really anybody has really heard of them unless you're in Houston, and that's really because Travis just hand plucked this guy straight out of the ground and said, "You're on the album." And really he comes through with a pretty stellar verse, sounding great, sounding eerily similar to T-Pain, but kind of like updated and refreshed for kind of a younger generation. And Travis doesn't really have anything too great, and honestly the lyrics of Don Toliver are just match the bars already set by Travis, so it's really nothing great lyrically, but just his sound and the pitch of his voice and his cadence all just really comes through on this track. And then it should be noted also, the one part I do like with Travis on this track is the chorus, with it really being catchy with the auto-tune really just hitting the perfect spot. And this is one of the only times that Travis really does pull through greatly with me with the auto-tune. What is one of the tracks that I was kind of like just not excited for when I saw the feature list on this album, and well, that's kind of because Takeoff and Quavo are on it. And I do like the Migos, but at this point, it's like they obviously just don't give a shit about anything they write or say. They just kind of want to get that check. So I knew they weren't going to really deliver lyrically. Maybe they'd have some good flows or sound or something, but they're just so played out considering they're on literally like every fucking track on earth. And so I'm just kind of sick of them at the moment. But the track, again, it just didn't live up. It was exactly what I thought it was, really. It was just a regular trap song with Quavo and Takeoff. No Offset, though, somehow. Somehow they left Offset off this time, but not Takeoff. And then Travis is there just doing his thing, and it's just a forgettable kind of whatever song. And I should note the beat on this is very, very basic. I mean, there's literally like no interesting sounds whatsoever. Like the most interesting standout noise that makes you think, oh damn, what was that, is the ad-libs, which of course it's going to be on the track. It's fucking Travis and Migos. Then there's Butterfly Effect, which was the lead single. I'm not sure if it was initially meant to be on the album, but it was released over like a year ago by now. And really it sounds like something more of Birds in the Trap, but kind of is better than a lot of the tracks on Birds in the Trap. It sounds like he made it afterwards and was like, shit, this is still really good, even though it really fits this album, I still want to put it out. And so it just kind of wound up being on here, but it really does pull through with me for a higher quality sound that Birds should have had with this sound. But on Astroworld it does fit still, but it's still not as updated and unique as a lot of the other tracks on here. But I will note, I do thoroughly enjoy all the earworms of the verses and the choruses, and including the lack of auto-tune that Travis uses is actually somewhat good in a sense. I just haven't seen him not use auto-tune and be this good. Like typically I like the songs where he's kind of using auto-tune here and there, but the whole chorus I don't really think he uses it like to really truly edit his voice that greatly, and it comes out sounding fantastic. Houston Fornication is in reference to Red Hot Chili Peppers' Californication, obviously, And really, this is another track that wasn't really needed on the album. It kind of just has some distant, eerie synths or sounds or whatever that is really kind of forgettable. Could be replaced with multiple other tracks on the album. And the only really upbringing to the song is the somewhat catchy chorus, but it's really nothing that could really save it. Then finally, there's the disappointing end to the album, Coffee Bean. And Coffee Bean really just seems like Travis trying to be kind of introspective and take a look at himself for once, instead of kind of being a cliche lyricist. And he just can't really pull through. Like on Stop Trying to Be God, he was able to do this, but that was really like a peak song right there, and being able to do that for him, I feel like, because everything sounds so vague and so bland, and he sounds bored and lazy. He doesn't really sound excited at all. It just sounds distant, like he got tired at the end of the album, bizarrely somehow. And the beat also just kind of sounds like an unfinished one, even though it obviously is a finished beat, but it sounds like they were halfway making one of his more psychedelic ones and then thought, maybe this is good if this was a more chill, laid back one, even though that's not really how it worked. You don't use a half finished beat as a full beat in a different song. The album really does have some interesting ideas and thoughts that often are pulled off correctly, but I feel could never really live up, especially right now with ASTROWORLD, live up to Rodeo. And I know it's kind of unfair to compare an artist to one point in their career, but when that artist is unable to break out of the same sound that they've been stuck in, I feel like I kind of have to, because that's the only way I feel like I can judge them compared to what they've done in the past that sounds like this. And really, I mean, I hope he can kind of break out in the sound into something new, but it's good, but it's no Rodeo. But with that being said, though, he has really mastered this, though, the beats, and although his lyrics and vocals may not be the most entrancing thing, the beats are just truly amazing. Even if he's not making them, the way that he just curates and makes sure everybody knows what they're doing, it really just comes together to make some unique sounding trap music that fits perfectly into what's popular, but has never been heard before. And he has truly just mastered this into a perfected craft. The album does, however, kind of drag on a little long, somewhat like Culture 2, even though Culture 2 was an extreme example. But like I was saying, Houston, A Fornication, kind of an unnecessary song. Skeletons could have been spared. A few other tracks on there I just felt like, oh, who, what? Like, none of those tracks I feel like will really be truly that remembered. And the lyrics, of course, I felt were a little weak. As good as Travis's and other aspects of curating and producing and stuff, the fact that he hasn't really improved that greatly in his vocals or his lyrics kind of disappoints me a little bit. It's like he's stuck there. Like, is this the peak of what we can hear from a lyrical Travis? Even though a lot of people may not listen to him for his great lyrics and stuff, he definitely shows interest in it. Like Stop Trying to Be God and Coffee Bean, he is there. He does recognize that he's able to, or somewhat able to do more, but he doesn't play like it for the rest of the album, and that kind of comes off as a disappointment to me. But going back to the vocal, his actual vocals, like I said, he can only make it better. So he can only make it so much better, and it's really not great vocals, but he has really gotten the use of the auto-tune down pretty correctly and uses it to his advantage and not overdoes it, and he doesn't overdo it too often. It's used at a tolerable amount. This album maybe wasn't worth all the hype that it was given, and I know I'll probably get a little bit of hate for saying that, but it is still something to definitely pin on Travis's career, and I would say it's probably like a 7. And if you like the video, you should like and subscribe, and comment what you thought of the album down in the comments below, and what else I should check out. I'll hopefully be doing these more often then. So yeah, I'll see you next time.